Hey, y'all, and welcome back to Say It Forward with Lou. I'm your host, Linda, aka Lou, and we are a community of healing, growth, creativity, positivity, and faith. So let's sift through the shift of today's topic and chat. And today, we're talking about that 3-word sentence almost every woman has mastered. I'm fine. Well, technically, that's 2 words. I use the contraction, but you get the point. Now, listen, I'm fine has layers, right? And if you ever say it knowing good and well, you are not fine at all, right? You ever say it knowing you are not fine at all, but you say it because you don't have the time or the energy or honestly, the emotional capacity to break down the whole story, right? And so, yeah, so what do? And sometimes I'm fine really means I don't even know how to explain what's wrong, right? Or honestly, it could be I'm too tired to explain, right? Or I don't even want to explain it, right? Or it could be if I start crying right now, I might not stop. And so you default to I'm fine, right? And so this episode is for the woman who holds it down for everybody and carries the weight of I'm fine alone, or at least she thinks she does, right? And so let me say this plainly. I'm fine is not a feeling. I like to say it's a shield of sorts, right? Because when you look in the Bible, when the Bible talks about the armor of God, right? It talks about the shield of faith. And a shield is meant to do what? Protect you, right? To cover you, right? To help guard you in battle. And so faith says, God's got me, right? Faith says, God is covering me, right? Faith says, God is with me even here. And so if we're honest, a lot of us have created a different kind of shield, right? A performance shield or a survival shield, right? A shield out of I'm fine. I got it, right? I'm good, right? I'll figure it out shield. And let me tell you, that thing hit me because when we use I'm fine as a shield, we start putting faith into something flimsy, right? Something temporary, something performative, right? Something that looks good, strong on the outside, but is actually exhausting us on the inside. And so the problem with false shields is they might protect you from people temporarily, but they can also block the healing God is trying to get to you. Does that make sense? So the longer you wear that shield, right, the heavier it starts to become. And so let me tell y'all something about my I'm fine era. Okay. That season, I was doing soft life aesthetics, right? On Instagram, Facebook, all social media. But in reality, in real life, I was living a tired life, right? I was the dependable one, the strong friend, she'll figure it out woman, right? And I was the one who never drop the ball, right? Even when the ball is made of glass, right? And I'm juggling with one hand tied behind my back. And the crazy part about that is people assumed I was okay because I made okay look okay, right? I made okay look good. And I could have been unraveling emotionally, right? And still showed up with a good outfit, a good lip, good scripture, right? On the outside, right? Composed and confident and capable, right? All the things, right? But on the inside, y'all, like, let's really talk about it. On the inside, I was tired. I was overloaded. I was emotionally worn thin. I could be crying in the shower. I could be crying in the car. I could be crying in the mirror. Like, girl, who signed me up for this assignment? This can't be my lot in life, right? Because for real, being strong sounds real cute, right? Until you realize that nobody's really checking on the strong one like that, right? Because they think you good, right? They think that I think that's the part that people miss, like that some women are not handling it, right? They are surviving it gracefully. And I learned how to go through and get through a lot of things very gracefully. And there's a difference, right? Because one day I was sitting in my car after work and I remember being so emotionally exhausted, right? And I just sat there in silence, right? No music, not praying, not talking, not scrolling on my phone, right? I was sitting there because I had spent so much time being everything for everybody else. I didn't even know what I needed anymore, right? And that's really the weight behind I'm fine. At least for me, it was, right? So let's go to Luke 10, verse 38 through 42, the story of Mary and Martha, right? Now, Martha was busy, productive, needed, right? I don't know about you, but that sounds very familiar to me, right? And again, being very honest, some of us would have cleaned the whole house, right? Cooked the meal, lit the candle, answered the text messages, right? Checked on everybody, checked the email, checked the roast in the oven, right? And still said, I got it, right? And the whole time, right? Drowning quietly, right? And I really believe Martha loved Jesus. Right. So I don't think this was about a lack of love of any kind. I think it was about identity, right? Because some of us only know how to feel valuable when we are needed, right? When we feel like we're needed for something. Y'all. Meanwhile, let's look at Mary. Mary chose posture over performance, right? What did Mary do? She sat, she listened, right? She rested, right? And Jesus was like, look, Mary has chosen what is better, right? Not easier necessarily, not prettier, right? But better. And I want you to really hear me on this because sometimes what looks like discipline is really disguised depletion, right? And I know about that all too well because sometimes what looks like strength is really chronic survival, right? And sometimes I'm fine, right? Is really, I don't feel safe enough to fall apart. And I really had to sit with that, right? Because when I really, really thought about the story of Mary and Martha, right, it hit differently to really think about that because I was like, y'all, Jesus was literally right there, right? Like Jesus was right there. Jesus was in the house. Peace was there. Safety was there, right? And Martha still could not just sit down. Like really think about that. Really think about that. Even in the presence of Jesus, she still felt the need to perform, to do, to serve, to keep moving, right? And honestly, I saw myself in that because how many of us as women of God, as believers, right? We love God deeply. We serve, we show up, but still don't really know how to just be. Just sit, just rest, just receive, and just let ourselves breathe for a second without feeling guilty about it. Because somewhere along the way, a lot of us, me included, learned how to constantly do for God without ever really learning how to rest with Him. And baby, let me tell you, that convicted me. It really did, because if I'm honest, really honest, there were seasons where I was in God's presence, right? But I still wasn't resting. I was praying while overwhelmed, right? Serving while exhausted, worshiping while emotionally worn thin. And I think a lot of women know exactly what that feels like, right? So let's go to Matthew 11, verse 28. And that says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Because Jesus never asked us to carry everything, right? He asked us to come to Him, right? So let me say this very gently. Strength is a blessing. It is. But unprocessed strength, well, that can become like bondage, right? Because the weight behind "I'm fine" can look like being praised for resilience, but punished for vulnerability, right? Everybody's counselor, but nobody's priority, right? Holding emotional loads you never consented to carrying, right? And being so strong that people might forget that you need softness too, right? You might forget you need softness too, right? And I didn't learn this from coaching women, right? I learned this because I was this woman, right? Every day, every month, right? Every year, right? And until I got tired of performing strong, right? That's when something finally started to shift for me, because I thought I just needed rest, right? Take a nap, right? Lay down, sit down somewhere, right? But what I really needed was to unlearn the identity I built around being strong. Because God didn't just tell me to sit down, right? He walked me through a process. So let's talk about it, because it was a recalibration, a redefining of what strength actually looks like in Him, right? Because sometimes overfunctioning becomes a response, or even a trauma response we mistake for faith. So let me tell you something else. A lot of high functioning, high achieving women can be silently falling apart because they still show up, right? But they still show up, still work, still smile, still serve, still produce, right? And nobody notices, right? So I want to ask you something very honestly. When was the last time you actually told the truth about how you were really doing? Not the polished version, not the good old church answer, right? Not the "I'm blessed and highly favored" version, right? But the real truth about how you were actually doing. So think about that. And if you're being for real, right? You might not even know where to start, right? You might not even know where to start with that, because I know I didn't either. I just knew that I was tired of carrying so much and calling it strength, right? And when God started walking me through my healing process and my healing journey, He started showing me things in layers, right? He started showing me things in layers. And so, first, purpose, right? Because I realized I had been carrying things He never assigned to me in the first place, right? And then there was perspective. because this wasn't strength anymore, right? It wasn't about strength anymore. This was about, for me, it was about suppression, right? And once I saw it, and once I saw it clearly, I couldn't keep calling it the wrong thing anymore, right? And so then came the pivot, right? God started showing me that every yes to everybody else and everything else was becoming a no to myself, right? And that one, that one hurt because it was like I had to be really real. And then perseverance, because healing is not just one deep cry and one worship song, right? Healing takes consistency, right? Over time, right? Rest became discipline, right? For me. And finally, preparation. God showed me I'm not taking your strength away, right? I'm just redefining it, right? I'm detoxing you from the identity you built around being the strong one, right? For everything and everyone else. And honestly, that changed a lot for me. It really did. Because when you actually stop hiding behind, I'm fine, right? You finally start making room for what's actually real. And what's real is where God begins to heal you. So let's continue to talk about it, right? So here's the word that I want for you today. You do not have to be the strong one all the time. And you're like, okay, Linda, easier said than done, right? But it's true. You do not have to hold everything together for everybody, right? You don't have to pretend because God is not impressed by your performance, right? He responds to your honesty. And maybe your healing, like mine, starts the moment you stop saying I'm fine when you're clearly not, right? So if this episode touched your heart in any way, right, that probably means there's a part of you carrying more than you'd like to admit. And that's okay. And I just want you to know that you don't have to carry it alone anymore, right? And so I have created the Chit Chat Clarity Call exactly for this, right? A safe space for women like me, like you, who are tired of surviving things beautifully, right? While suffering silently. We talk, we unpack, and we identify what's underneath I'm fine. And we begin moving you toward a place of peace and clarity and alignment. So if that's you, head over to sayitforwardwithlou.com and book your free clarity call. And if nobody has told you this lately, you are allowed to need and care too, because you deserve a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside, right? So thank you so much, everyone. I'm so glad you spent a part of your day with me today. And thank you for tuning in and spending this time with me here at Say It Forward with Lou. And as always, share this with another woman who needs some word and inspiration. And as always, stay tuned, stay a while, and let's continue to say it forward together. Take care.